and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Sophia.
And I'm James. We're here to help you learn English in a fun and practical way. Today, we'll talk about something very important choosing English for job interviews.
Yes, job interviews can feel stressful, but don't worry. We'll guide you through key phrases, vocabulary, and tips that will make you feel more confident. Let's start with the basics. James, what's the first thing we need to know?
The first thing is introducing yourself. In a job interview, the first question is often, "Can you tell me about yourself?" How can you answer that, Sophia?
A good answer is short and clear. For example, you can say, "My name is Anna. I am from Mexico. I studied accounting, and I have 3 years of experience working in a finance company."
That's a great example. Keep your sentences simple. You don't need to use big, difficult words. Focus on your skills and experience.
Another important point is to smile and make eye contact. Even if your English isn't perfect, showing confidence is key.
Absolutely. And don't forget to use polite phrases like, "Thank you for this opportunity," or "It's a pleasure to meet you."
Good manners go a long way. Now, let's talk about some vocabulary you can use when describing your skills. For example, you can say, "I am hardworking," or "I am a quick learner."
Yes, and don't forget action words like, "I organized," "I managed," or "I improved." For example, "I managed a team of 5 people," or "I improved sales by 20%.
Those are excellent examples. You can also use phrases like, "I am good at teamwork," or "I have strong communication skills."
Speaking of skills, many interviews include a question like, "What are your strengths?" How would you answer that, Sophia?
You can say, "One of my strengths is problem solving." "I enjoy finding solutions to challenges," or "I am very organized and always meet deadlines."
That's perfect. Just make sure your answer matches the job you are applying for. If you're applying for a customer service job, you might say, "I am very patient and enjoy helping people."
Exactly. And remember to practice your answers before the interview. Practice makes you feel more comfortable and helps you speak clearly.
That's a great tip. We'll continue with more helpful phrases and tips next, so stick with us as we explore more ways to shine in your job interview.
You're doing great so far. Let's keep going.
Now, let's dive deeper into job interviews. We've already talked about introducing yourself and sharing your strengths. But what happens when the interviewer asks, "Why do you want this job?"
That's a very common question, and it's important to give a thoughtful answer. You can say something like, "I want this job because it matches my skills and experience. I also see opportunities to grow and learn in this role."
That's a strong answer. It shows that you've thought about the job and how it fits your goals. Another way to answer is to mention the company. For example, "I admire your company because it values teamwork and innovation. I want to be part of this positive environment."
Yes, mentioning the company is always a good idea. It shows that you've done your homework. Speaking of preparation, James, how can someone prepare for questions about their weaknesses?
Good question. If the interviewer asks, "What are your weaknesses?" don't panic. This is not a trick question. They want to see if you're honest and willing to improve.
That's right. You can say something like, "One of my weaknesses is that I can be a little too detail-oriented, but I'm working on focusing more on the big picture."
Or you might say, "I sometimes find it hard to say no to extra work, but I'm learning to prioritize tasks and manage my time better."
The key is to mention a real weakness, but also explain how you're improving. It shows self-awareness and a willingness to grow.
Now, let's move on to behavior-based questions. These are questions like, "Can you give an example of a time when you solved a problem?"
These questions can feel tricky, but they're actually a great chance to share your experience. Start with the situation, explain what action you took, and end with the result. For example, in my last job, we had a customer who was unhappy with a product. I listened carefully, apologized, and offered a replacement. The customer was very satisfied and thanked me for my help.
That's a perfect example. Remember to focus on what you did to solve the problem and how it helped. Another common question is, how do you handle stress?
Yes, and a good answer might be, I handle stress by staying organized and making a plan. For example, when I have multiple deadlines, I prioritize my tasks and focus on one thing at a time.
Or you can say, I try to stay calm under pressure by taking short breaks to clear my mind. This helps me focus better and do my best work.
Those are great answers. Now, let's talk about questions you can ask the interviewer. At the end of the interview, they often ask, do you have any questions for us? It's a good idea to ask something.
Definitely. You can ask, what does a typical day look like in this role? Or, what are the next steps in the hiring process? These questions show that you're interested and engaged.
You can also ask about the company, like, what do you enjoy most about working here? Or, how does this company support employee growth?
That's a fantastic way to learn more about the job and leave a good impression. And speaking of impressions, let's talk about what to do after the interview.
After the interview, it's polite to send a thank you email. You can write, thank you for meeting with me today. I enjoyed learning about the role and your team. Please let me know if you need any more information from me.
That's a professional and kind way to follow up. It shows that you're serious about the job and appreciate their time.
Exactly. And while you wait to hear back, keep practicing your English and preparing for future interviews. Every interview is a chance to improve your skills.
Well said, Sophia. There's so much more to discuss about job interviews, so let's keep going and explore more practical tips and phrases.
Now that we've covered the basics and talked about answering common questions, let's focus on making your English sound natural and professional during the interview. This is very important because the way you speak can leave a strong impression.
That's a great idea, Sophia. Let's start with tone and clarity. When you're in an interview, speak slowly and clearly. Don't rush your sentences. This gives you time to think and helps the interviewer understand you better.
Absolutely, a calm and steady tone shows confidence, even if you feel nervous inside. And remember to pause slightly between sentences. For example, instead of saying, I'm hardworking, I'm good at teamwork, I love solving problems, say, I am hardworking, I'm good at teamwork, I love solving problems.
That's such a simple tip, but it makes a big difference. Another thing to watch is your vocabulary. If you're not sure about advanced words, stick to simple, clear language. For example, instead of saying I facilitate communication, you can say I help people communicate.
Yes, keep it simple. And don't forget about polite phrases. In English, we often use phrases like, I would like to, or it would be great if these sound more formal than saying, I want to.
That's a good point. For example, instead of saying, I want this job because I like it, you can say, I would really like this job because it matches my skills and interests.
Perfect. Now, let's talk about body language. James, what are some things to remember about body language in a job interview?
Great question. First, sit up straight. Good posture shows that you're attentive and professional. Second, make eye contact with the interviewer. It's okay to look away sometimes, but try to look at them when you're speaking or listening.
Yes, and don't forget to smile. A friendly smile makes you seem approachable and confident. But don't overdo it, just smile naturally when it feels right.
That's true. Also, avoid fidgeting. For example, don't tap your fingers on the table or play with your pen. These small movements can make you look nervous.
Right, and if you don't understand a question, don't panic. It's okay to ask the interviewer to repeat or explain. You can say, I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question? Or could you explain what you mean by that?
That's very important. Don't pretend to understand if you're not sure. Interviewers appreciate honesty and will usually be happy to clarify.
Now, let's practice some sentences you might need during the interview. For example, if the interviewer asks about a skill you don't have, you can say, "I don't have experience with that, but I am eager to learn."
Or if they ask about a tool or software you haven't used, you can say, "I haven't worked with that tool yet, but I am confident I can learn quickly."
Those are excellent responses. And what about when they ask, "Why should we hire you?" That's a big question, isn't it?
It is, but you can handle it with a good structure. Start with your skills, mention your experience, and end with your enthusiasm. For example, "You should hire me because I have strong problem-solving skills and 3 years of experience in customer service. I am excited to bring my energy and ideas to your team."
That's a powerful answer. And don't forget to sound confident when you say it. Your tone should match the positive words you're using.
Good point. And here's another thing. Sometimes the interviewer will ask you unexpected questions, like, "If you were an animal, what would you be?"
Oh, yes, those creative questions can feel strange, but they're just looking to see how you think. A good answer might be, "I would be a dolphin because dolphins are intelligent, social, and work well in teams."
That's a fun way to show your personality. Just stay calm, smile, and give an answer that connects to the skills they're looking for.
Exactly. And before we move on, let's quickly review some phrases for ending the interview. When the interviewer says, "Do you have anything else to add?" you can say, "I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. I'm very excited about the role."
That's a great way to leave a positive impression. We still have more helpful tips to share, so let's continue and keep learning together.
We're back to wrap up our discussion on using English for job interviews, and I hope you found our tips helpful so far. In this final part, we'll focus on polishing your overall performance and preparing for success.
That's right. So far, we've talked about answering questions, using the right tone, and even handling unexpected situations. But there's one more thing that can make a big difference: practicing before the interview.
Practice is essential. It helps you feel more confident and familiar with the questions. James, what are some ways to practice for an English job interview?
One great way is to practice with a friend or family member. Give them a list of common interview questions and ask them to play the role of the interviewer.
Yes, and if you don't have someone to practice with, you can record yourself answering questions. Listen to your recording and check for areas where you can improve, like pronunciation or clarity.
That's a great idea. You can also use a mirror to practice your body language. Watch how you sit, smile, and make eye contact.
Another tip is to write down your answers to common questions, but don't memorize them word for word. It's better to understand the main ideas and speak naturally.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about interview day. Sophia, what should someone do on the day of their interview?
First, dress appropriately. Even if it's a video interview, wear professional clothing. For example, a clean shirt and a blazer are good choices.
And don't forget about time management. Arrive at the interview location 10 to 15 minutes early. If it's online, make sure your internet and camera are working and join the call a few minutes before the scheduled time.
That's very important. Also, bring a copy of your resume and any documents the interviewer might need, like certificates or references. For online interviews, keep these documents ready to share electronically if asked.
Good point. Now, during the interview, remember to show interest in the role. You can say things like, "This opportunity excites me because," or "I'm really looking forward to contributing to your team."
That enthusiasm makes a big difference. Interviewers want to hire people who are motivated and eager to learn. Even if your English isn't perfect, your positive attitude will stand out.
Absolutely. And here's another tip. Don't forget to smile and nod when the interviewer is speaking. This shows that you're engaged and actively listening.
Yes, and when it's your turn to answer, try to stay calm, even if you're nervous. Take a deep breath before speaking. It's okay to pause for a moment to gather your thoughts.
That's great advice. And let's not forget to prepare for ending the interview on a strong note. When the interviewer says, "Thank you for coming," you can respond with, "Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to interview with you."
That's a polite and professional way to end. And after the interview, don't forget to send a thank you email. A simple message like, "Thank you for the interview today. It was a pleasure to learn more about the role and your team," can leave a lasting impression.
Absolutely. It shows that you're thoughtful and professional. Now, let's quickly go over some final reminders for job interviews. Sophia, what's the number one thing to keep in mind?
Be yourself, show your personality and confidence, even if your English isn't perfect. Interviewers understand that English might not be your first language, and they appreciate effort and enthusiasm.
That's so true. And remember to stay positive. Even if you don't get the job, every interview is a learning experience. Each one helps you improve your skills for the next opportunity.
Exactly. And don't give up. The more you prepare and practice, the better you'll become.
Well said, Sophia. That brings us to the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you. We hope these tips help you succeed in your job interviews. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more helpful content.
And share this podcast with your family and friends who might find it useful.
Best of luck in your job search. And remember, you've got this.
Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.